Hello, enjoy the story. The text message came through at 2:47 a.m. I'm staying at Rachel's tonight. Don't wait up. I stared at my phone, the blue light harsh in the darkness of our bedroom. Something about Jennifer's message felt off. After 8 years of marriage, you develop a sixth sense about these things. Rachel had moved to Seattle 3 months ago for a tech job at Amazon. Unless she'd suddenly teleported back to Chicago, my wife was lying. I lay there in our king-sized bed, alone with my thoughts, when another message lit up my screen. This one wasn't from Jennifer. It was from my buddy Mike. Dude, I think you need to see this. Attached was a photo taken at O'Malley's, the Irish pub downtown. There was Jennifer, sitting at the bar, practically in some guy's lap. Her wedding ring was conspicuously absent. The timestamp showed 2:12 a.m., just 30 minutes before her text about staying at Rachel's. My hands started shaking. The worst part wasn't even the photo. It was remembering all the little things that suddenly made sense. The girls' nights that had been happening more frequently. The new gym membership she'd insisted on getting, even though we had a perfectly good setup in our basement. The password changes on her phone. The mysterious work trips that seemed to pop up out of nowhere. I got dressed and drove to O'Malley's, my mind racing. The bouncer recognized me. I'd been coming here for years. Hey Tony, your wife left about 20 minutes ago. She was with some suit-wearing dude in a fancy Audi. Didn't look right to me, so I snapped that pic and sent it to Mike. Hope you don't mind. I didn't mind. In fact, I was grateful. Any idea where they went? He hesitated. The Westin on Michigan Avenue. Heard them talking about it when they called an Uber. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Part of me wanted to storm the hotel, but I knew that would only make things messier. Instead, I pulled out my phone and started making calls. First to my lawyer, then to our bank. By sunrise, I had a plan. Jennifer had no idea that I'd been quietly documenting her increasingly erratic behavior over the past few months, or that I'd kept records of the money she'd been siphoning from our joint account into her private one, or that I'd saved every suspicious text and email she'd carelessly left open on our shared iPad. Most importantly, she had no idea that I'd already met with a divorce attorney 2 weeks ago, after finding receipts from Victoria's Secret for lingerie I'd never seen. I wasn't some heartbroken fool who needed time to process. I was ready. When Jennifer finally came home at 9 a.m., wearing last night's clothes and reeking of cologne that wasn't mine, I was waiting in the kitchen with divorce papers. Her face went from hungover to horrified in seconds. Don't bother with the excuses, I said calmly. I know about the Westin. I know about the money you've been stealing. I know everything. She started crying, but these weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration at being caught. Tony, please, I can explain. Save it for your lawyer. I cut her off. I've already frozen our joint accounts and contacted a realtor about selling the house. You can stay with Rachel in Seattle. Oh wait, that's right. She moved months ago. Guess you'll have to find somewhere else to go. Jennifer's mask of contrition disappeared, replaced by ugly anger. You can't just throw me out. Half of everything is mine. I smiled. Actually, thanks to your creative accounting these past few months, that's not entirely true. Sign these papers now, and I won't press charges for financial fraud. Your choice. The look of dawning realization on her face was almost worth all the pain she'd caused. Almost. Jennifer refused to sign the papers that morning, storming out of the house in a rage. I expected that. What I didn't expect was the text I received an hour later from her sister Emma. I can't keep quiet anymore, Emma's message read. There's more you need to know. Can we meet? We met at a quiet coffee shop across town. Emma looked terrible, like she hadn't slept in days. She ordered a black coffee with shaking hands and got straight to the point. Jennifer's been planning to leave you for months, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She and this guy Marcus. They've been embezzling money from their company together. They were going to run away to the Cayman Islands next week. She's been using you as a cover story while they set everything up. I felt the blood drain from my face. This wasn't just about infidelity anymore. This was serious criminal activity. Emma slid a USB drive across the table. She asked me to help her hide some files. I made copies. There's enough evidence here to send both of them to prison. She stood up, leaving her untouched coffee. I love my sister, but what she's doing is wrong. I'm sorry, Tony. I immediately called Detective Rivera, an old friend from college who worked in the financial crimes unit. Within hours, the evidence was being processed, and Jennifer's corporate accounts were frozen. That evening, my phone exploded with angry calls and texts from Jennifer. She'd been arrested at her office, along with Marcus. The look of betrayal on her face when they let her out in handcuffs, right past my office window, was priceless. I timed my evidence handover perfectly, but Jennifer had one last card to play. Through her lawyer, she tried to claim that I had orchestrated the whole thing, that I'd fabricated the evidence out of jealousy. She even convinced her mother to go on local news, crying about how I'd framed her innocent daughter. That's when I played my trump card. I'd been recording all our conversations since finding those Victoria's Secret receipts. In Illinois, that's completely legal as long as one party consents. I had hours of Jennifer inadvertently confessing to everything. The affair, the embezzlement, even her plans to flee the country. When her lawyer heard the recordings, he immediately advised her to take a plea deal. The DA was offering 5 years if she testified against Marcus, who'd apparently been running similar scams with other women for years. Jennifer finally signed those divorce papers. Not because she wanted to, but because her lawyer convinced her it would look better for sentencing. She even tried to write me a letter from jail, full of excuses and apologies. I returned it unopened. The company pressed charges for the embezzlement. We're talking millions of dollars. Jennifer and Marcus had been systematically draining corporate accounts, disguising the transfers as legitimate business expenses. They'd even set up fake vendor accounts to funnel the money through. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. But then I remembered all the lies, all the times she'd looked me in the eye and said she loved me while plotting to steal everything and disappear. I remembered how she'd used our marriage as a shield while she committed her crimes. Emma later told me that Jennifer had been living a double life for years. She had a secret apartment downtown where she'd meet Marcus, paid for with stolen company money. She'd even started using a fake name in certain circles, building an entirely different identity for her planned escape. The irony? If she'd just asked for a divorce like a normal person, none of this would have come to light. Her greed and need for drama had been her undoing. Now, instead of sipping cocktails in the Cayman Islands, she was wearing an orange jumpsuit and eating prison food. I sold our house for a nice profit and moved into a sleek downtown condo. Every morning, I walk past the Westin where I caught her that night, and I smile. Sometimes the best revenge isn't something you plan. It's simply letting justice take its course. 3 months into Jennifer's incarceration, I received an unexpected visitor at my condo. It was Marcus's wife, Diane, a woman I hadn't even known existed. She stood in my doorway, clutching a leather portfolio, her eyes red from crying. "I think we need to talk," she said quietly. "There's so much more to this than either of us knew." Over bourbon, Diane revealed the full scope of Marcus and Jennifer's deception. They hadn't just been stealing from the company. They'd been systematically destroying evidence of Marcus's other fraudulent activities across 3 states. Jennifer had been helping him hide money from his divorce proceedings with Diane, all while planning their escape together. "The funny thing is," Diane said, her hands trembling as she opened the portfolio, "Jennifer wasn't even his main accomplice. She was just the latest in a long line of women he'd manipulated into helping him. Look at these." She spread out dozens of photos across my coffee table. Each showed Marcus with different women at various corporate events over the years. In every photo, he wore the same expensive watch, a gift from Jennifer that she'd bought with our anniversary vacation fund. The watch was his signature move, Diane explained. He'd convince each woman to buy it for him, claiming it was a symbol of their special connection. Then he'd use it to manipulate them into helping with his schemes. My stomach churned. How many women are we talking about? At least 7 that I know of. All married, all in positions of financial authority at their companies. He'd seduce them, convince them to help him steal money, then disappear when things got hot. Jennifer was just unlucky enough to get caught. I poured us both another drink. Why are you telling me this? Diane's eyes hardened. Because Marcus has been writing to Jennifer from jail, planning their next move. My private investigator intercepted this yesterday. She pulled out a letter, its prison markings still fresh. They're not done with either of us. The letter detailed an elaborate plan. Once they served their time, they intended to sue both me and Diane for defamation, claiming we'd conspired to frame them. They'd even convinced Jennifer's mother to mortgage her house to pay for a high-powered attorney. They're both sociopaths, Diane said flatly. And they're more dangerous behind bars than they were free. They have nothing to lose now. I spent that night reviewing everything, the evidence Emma had provided, the recordings, the financial records. There had to be something we'd missed, something that would shut down their revenge plot before it could begin. That's when I noticed it. In one of Jennifer's recorded conversations, she'd mentioned a storage unit where she kept insurance. I dismissed it at the time, focused on the bigger evidence. But now, find that unit, Diane said when I called her. If I know Marcus, that's where they'll have dirt on everyone they've scammed. It's how they keep people quiet. It took 3 days of searching through rental records, but we found it. The unit was registered under the name Rachel Thompson, Jennifer's alibi friend who'd moved to Seattle. When we opened it with the police present, everything fell into place. Boxes of documents, hard drives, USB drives, photos, even a burner phone. Jennifer and Marcus hadn't just been stealing money. They'd been blackmailing their way through Chicago's corporate world for years. Each victim had been silenced with threatened exposure of their own indiscretions. The evidence we found implicated not just Jennifer and Marcus, but dozens of other people in a web of corporate fraud, infidelity, and extortion. Jennifer's insurance had just ensured that her sentence would be measured in decades, not years. I forwarded everything to Detective Rivera, then sat down to write a letter to Jennifer in jail. It was short and to the point. Found your storage unit. Game over. Her response came through her mother, who showed up at my office screaming about how I'd ruined her daughter's life. Security had to escort her out. But as she left, I saw something in her eyes. Not anger, but fear. She finally understood who her daughter really was. That night, Diane and I met for dinner to discuss next steps. We weren't looking for revenge anymore. We were trying to prevent Jennifer and Marcus from hurting anyone else ever again. You know they'll never stop, Diane said, pushing her food around her plate. Even with all this evidence, they'll find new victims, new schemes. I nodded, then showed her what I'd been working on, a detailed website documenting their crimes, their methods, their patterns. It was ready to go live the moment they filed their threatened lawsuit. Let them try to sue us, I said. The truth is our best defense. The evidence from the storage unit had opened a Pandora's box that no one could close. As Detective Rivera dug deeper, a pattern emerged that made my blood run cold. Jennifer's betrayal went far beyond our marriage. She'd been systematically destroying lives for years. One morning, I received a call from a woman named Catherine Miller. Her voice trembled as she spoke. I found your number in my husband's phone. He died last year.
Suicide.
I think Jennifer and Marcus were blackmailing him. Over coffee at a quiet diner, Catherine shared her story. Her husband James had been a senior accountant at one of Chicago's largest investment firms. Jennifer had seduced him, convinced him to cook the books, then threatened to expose everything unless he continued helping with their schemes. The night before he died, Catherine whispered, tears streaming down her face, James told me he'd made a terrible mistake. I thought he was talking about an affair. I had no idea. She pulled out a crumpled suicide note. He wrote that he couldn't live with what they made him do. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just about money anymore. Jennifer and Marcus had blood on their hands. That evening, I met with Diane at a bar near the courthouse. She'd been compiling a timeline of Marcus's activities, and James Miller's death fit a disturbing pattern. 3 other people connected to their schemes had died under suspicious circumstances over the past 5 years. They're not just fraudsters, Diane said, her voice hard. They're predators. They find vulnerable people, exploit them, then discard them when they're no longer useful. As we talked, my phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Need to see you now. Emergency. We found Emma waiting in my condo's lobby, visibly shaken. Mom's dead, she blurted out. She overdosed on sleeping pills. They found this beside her. She handed me a handwritten confession. Jennifer and Marcus hadn't just convinced her mother to mortgage her house. They'd manipulated her into becoming an unwitting accomplice in their schemes, using her position as a real estate agent to launder money through property sales. The guilt was killing her, Emma sobbed. Jennifer knew Mom had depression issues, but she used her anyway. Her own mother. I held Emma while she cried, feeling a rage I'd never experienced before. Jennifer hadn't just betrayed me. She destroyed her entire family without a second thought. The next day, I visited Jennifer in prison. She sat across from me, orange jumpsuit hanging loose on her frame, eyes cold and calculating despite her circumstances. Come to gloat? She asked, smirking. Or did you miss me? Your mother's dead, I said flatly. She killed herself last night. The smirk faltered for just a second before returning. Poor Mom. Always was weak. Just like you, Tony. Too emotional, too trusting. James Miller's widow came to see me, I continued, watching her face carefully. Remember him? The accountant who killed himself. This time, the mask slipped completely. Fear flashed across her features before she could hide it. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, but her voice had lost its confident edge. The FBI is reopening those cases, I lied, studying her reaction. They're looking into all the suspicious deaths connected to your schemes with Marcus. Jennifer's composure cracked. For the first time since this all began, I saw real panic in her eyes. I want my lawyer, she stammered. Standing up so quickly her chair fell backward. As guards led her away, she turned back, desperation replacing her usual arrogance. Tony, wait. I can explain everything. I'll tell you the truth this time, I swear. I walked out without looking back, her pleas echoing through the visiting room. Outside, I called Detective Rivera. You were right, I said. Mention the deaths and she falls apart. She knows something. We'll bring her in for questioning tomorrow, he replied. Marcus too. Their lawyers won't be able to protect them from this. The dominoes fell faster than anyone expected. Under FBI questioning, Marcus cracked first, offering to testify against Jennifer in exchange for a reduced sentence. His confession painted a picture more twisted than we'd imagined. Jennifer had been the mastermind all along. She'd approached him at a corporate retreat 5 years ago, already armed with blackmail material on half the executives in attendance. Marcus, impressed by her ruthlessness, had become her willing apprentice rather than her manipulator. Together, they'd built an empire of destruction, leaving broken lives in their wake. I watched from the courthouse gallery as Jennifer's carefully constructed facade finally shattered. When Marcus took the stand and revealed everything, she lunged at him, screaming that he'd promised never to betray her. It took 3 bailiffs to restrain her. That's when her real nature emerged. In a rage, she started confessing to everything. Not just the fraud and blackmail, but worse. She'd orchestrated James Miller's suicide, deliberately pushing him over the edge when he threatened to expose their schemes. She'd knowingly driven her own mother to take those sleeping pills, seeing her as a liability after the storage unit discovery. You think you've won? She shrieked at me across the courtroom. I chose you because you were weak, easily manipulated. 8 years of marriage and you never saw the real me. What does that say about you? The judge had to clear the courtroom. Later, Diane touched my arm and whispered, She's wrong. You weren't weak, you were trustworthy. There's a difference. Jennifer's sentencing came down like a hammer. 45 years without possibility of parole. The judge cited her extraordinary cruelty and complete lack of remorse as aggravating factors. Marcus got 20 years for his cooperation. That evening, I sat in my condo looking over the city lights when my phone buzzed with a text from Emma. It's done. Moving to Seattle for real this time. Thank you for helping me see the truth about my sister. I poured myself one last bourbon, thinking about Jennifer's words in the courtroom. She was right about one thing: I hadn't seen the real her. But I'd seen it now, and I'd helped make sure she could never hurt anyone else. The next morning, I walked into my office to find Catherine Miller waiting. She handed me an envelope. The insurance company reversed their decision on James's policy. Your evidence proved it wasn't a voluntary suicide, it was coerced. I want you to have half. I tried to refuse, but she insisted. Start a foundation, she said. Help other victims of people like them. Turn this poison into something healing. I looked at the check, $2 million. Enough to make a real difference. I thought about all the other victims out there, all the other Jennifers and Marcuses weaving their webs of destruction. That afternoon, I filed the paperwork for the Phoenix Foundation, named for the idea of rising from the ashes of betrayal. Its first initiative? A nationwide database tracking patterns of corporate fraud and predatory behavior, helping law enforcement connect the dots before more lives could be destroyed. Jennifer's last letter arrived a week later. I recognized her handwriting on the envelope, but this time I didn't return it unopened. I read every word of her vitriol, her blame-shifting, her desperate attempts to wound me one last time. Then I did something that would hurt her more than any revenge. I moved on. The letter now sits in a Phoenix Foundation file, one of thousands documenting the patterns of predators who hide behind masks of love and trust. Jennifer wanted to be remembered as a criminal mastermind. Instead, she'll be remembered as a case study in how to spot monsters wearing human faces. The Foundation's first public service announcement aired during the Super Bowl, funded by recovered funds from Jennifer and Marcus's schemes. Its message was simple: trust, but verify. Your heart isn't wrong for loving, but your eyes need to stay open. I saw Jennifer one last time, the day I testified at her appeal hearing. She'd lost weight, her designer clothes replaced by prison denim, her carefully maintained mask cracked beyond repair. She tried to catch my eye, but I looked right through her. She'd made herself a ghost in my life long before she got caught. I was just making it official. That night, Diane and I had dinner at the Weston's rooftop restaurant, the same hotel where Jennifer's lies had begun to unravel. We weren't celebrating, we were closing a chapter. To the truth, Diane said, raising her glass. It comes out when it's ready. I looked out over the Chicago skyline, thinking about trust and betrayal, about masks and truth, about justice and healing. Jennifer thought she'd destroyed my capacity for trust. Instead, she taught me the difference between trust and naivety, a lesson I now shared with others through the Foundation's work. The next morning, I signed the final paperwork transferring our house to a shelter for victims of financial abuse. Let something good come from all that pain. Let the place where Jennifer plotted destruction become a place of healing. Jennifer's mother's house became the first satellite office of the Phoenix Foundation. Emma runs it now, turning her sister's legacy of destruction into a beacon of hope. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemy. It's about building something they can never tear down. Thank you for listening the story to the end. Write your thoughts about it in the comments, and do not forget to subscribe. See you in the next videos. Bye. Thank you for listening.